TMG Fireside Chat, Strategy, Leadership, and Innovation in Fire Protection. Uncovering the insights driving growth, transformation, and the future of fire life safety. Welcome back to the TMG Fireside Chat. This is episode 20. In this episode, I'm joined by longtime friend and fire protection veteran Dave Pelton, Vice President of Technical at NAFED, the National Association of Fire Equipment Distributors. We dive deep into the state of NFPA code cycles, the latest on NFPA 10, 96, 17A, 30A, 915, and more. We also talk about what's happening with lithium-ion battery fire standards and the new NFPA 800. We go through key updates from the 2025 NAFED conference season, and we also talk about how contractors and AHJs can stay engaged and informed on shifting codes and standards. Dave shares practical insights and gives us a clear look into what's next for fire suppression professionals, from EV charging risks to fire blanket myths, and the real story on L-rated extinguishers. Whether you're a service contractor, manufacturer, or AHJ, this episode is packed with value. Contacts and detailed links to NAFED resources are located in the show notes. Hello, and welcome to our next episode of the TMG Fireside Chat. I'm your host, John Mackey. Today, I am honored, blessed to sit down with one of my absolute best friends. I've known Dave Pelton, now the VP of Technical for NAFED, but Dave and I go back nearly 20 years, 18 years since I joined Fire. Dave was one of the first people I met when I came into Ansel. Dave, what was your role at Ansel?
Director of Marketing, Global Marketing, and Communications for Tyco Fire Suppression Products.
Yeah, it was great to be able to start in the industry and get to work with people like Dave Pelton, some of the industry icons, Dennis Kennedy, Bill Smith, Mark Pillow, Mark Vandover, right? Who else? Kevin White,
Dennis Moreros.
Dennis Moreros,
one of the best finance guys that understood sales and sales more than straight finance. So
absolutely. So Dave and I go back a long time. Unfortunately for me now, I get to see Dave quite often. As many of you may know on the podcast, I've been an active member of NAFED for several years, and most recently held two different board roles. First is on the board seat for the supplier role, and then secondly as a board advisor. And so I got to see Dave in action and sharing his wisdom across the industry with the board and NAFED overall. So in today's podcast, Dave, as you and I talked about as we prepared for this, I want to use this opportunity to talk about NAFED. For those that don't know, the National Association of Fire Equipment Distributors. Generally speaking, the fire extinguisher folks, the hood suppression folks, some of the special hazards folks.
main focus is those that design, install, inspect, service, and maintain portable extinguishers, special hazard suppression systems, both engineered, pre-engineered type, fire alarm, and maybe perhaps to a lesser extent water-based sprinkler.
Yep.
But nonetheless, the membership is quite diverse.
Yes. NAFED's been around 60 years.
Over 60 years. I think now 62 going on 63.
Mm-hmm. So great organization. If you're not a member, I strongly encourage you to take a look at it. Offers a ton of value for members. And in today's broad podcast, we're also going to get into some of the information on codes and standards. So we just finished the conference season for NAFED. 3 cities, 3 months.
Whirlwind tour again, John.
Yes. Vegas in March, Atlantic City in April, and this year we were in St. Louis in May. What's your take on the conferences? How was attendance? How was the topics? What were you able to present on? What's your take on NAFED 2025.
Well, first and foremost, John, thank you for extending to NAFED the opportunity to participate in the TMG Fireside Chat. 2025 was another fantastic year for NAFED relative to our conferences, not only attendance wise, but overall, our membership has increased the last few years as well. Technically, I guess I have that honor of being the last presenter on the last day of the conference. That's always a tough spot to be in. So for those of you that are listening that don't stick around for all of Friday, stick around for Friday technical review.
Help Dave turn the lights off. Help Dave turn the lights off.
Help me turn the lights off as the doors close. So you'll get a little snippet today of some of the things you perhaps missed. But as always, John, a pleasure, pleasure to take the opportunity.
Yeah.
So it's this year's report, the last actual 2 years, 2024 and 2025, from NAFED's perspective in the way of industry advocacy, particularly NFPA codes and standards, has been a busy year. The association, for those of you that may not know, we sit on approximately 28 different NFPA codes and standards, not just those that perhaps may be near and dear to some of our members' primary core products, such as portable extinguishers, kitchen suppression systems, commercial cooking ventilation, or perhaps gas and service stations, but all the way through the spectrum and span of, again, water-based sprinkler, fire alarm, and special hazards. Out of that 28, about half were in cycle in 2024. And we're finding for 2025, again, about half of those are in cycle.
Yeah.
So it's been extremely busy for not only myself, which I do personally set out some of the standards, but for our volunteer members, NAFED members who are engaged in representing NAFED on NFPA technical committees. And we're excited because this coming 2025, we will see new editions of NFPA 10, the standard for portable fire extinguishers, along with a few others. And we'll chat more about that here in just a minute.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I think one of the things that the conference, when I go to obviously Dave's presentation about just where are we at for the code cycles and what's affecting the industry, is always very beneficial, very informative. But I think there's also some great presentations from like Rasky Barban giving the FEMA update. What's going on with regard to the broader aspect of lobbying activity and legislation in the state level. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so in my presentation, Jeff Terry with Rasky, that's been a great NAFED FEMA partnership for a number of years. Jeff always gives a great perspective of what's happening at that federal state level. And I think, at least my hope is many of you, our members, are also familiar with our monthly legislative update, which keeps you abreast again of not only things perhaps in your own state, but again, on a nationwide basis.
Yeah.
So, aside from the national codes, we have that additional little flair there that hopefully in your own local markets, you're keeping abreast and advised of those activities. So, so some of the key takeaways, as I would say, from the 2025 conference season was particularly NFPA 10. As I mentioned just a few minutes ago, the next edition, 2025 edition, is in cycle. It'll be released this fall of 24, but it'll be a 25 edition. Some of the new things that you will see in there, it will not contain any new classifications of fire for L or T. Now, some of you may be scratching your head, but I think you're all familiar with lithium-ion batteries and the lithium-ion battery problem. There were public inputs solicited or made that the committee should consider the addition of a new classification of fire for portable extinguishers dealing with lithium-ion batteries. However, the scope of NFPA 10 deals with incipient stage fires, not thermal explosive events. So clearly the topic of lithium-ion battery fires or batteries of any nature are clearly outside the scope. Yep. So for those of you that may be hoping for something, you're not going to say be disappointed, but NFPA 800, a brand new standard,
yes,
battery code, will be addressing those across the spectrum of all types of batteries. That said, there are a couple of new things that'll be going into the 2025 edition you should be aware of. Chapter 8, hydrostatic testing, you will see new language added pertaining to non-specification cylinders, which are critically important. There is some new language within inspection, test, and maintenance, Chapter 7, as well as hopefully we will be balloting to perhaps, hopefully if all goes well, there's been a request by the American Society of Healthcare, or I'm sorry, American Society of Healthcare Engineers, or ASHE,
Yep.
to change for facilities that include a hospital, the inspection interval from monthly to quarterly.
Okay.
That has been a big concern, not only to NAFED, but FEMA, other industry stakeholders, not just us, but obviously other end users, HJs in particular, and we're hoping to defeat that. In fact, if we didn't say anything, we're actually at the NFPA Expo and Conference this week.
We could turn the camera on. You can look at the Mandalay Bay tunnel behind us, overlooking the pool.
It's a beautiful sunny day out.
Yeah, it's 110 here in Las Vegas.
But tomorrow is the annual technical meeting, and we're hoping to defeat that, John. But all in all, if all goes well, you'll have a new edition of the 2025 NFPA 10.
So, Dave, I know, when I do these podcasts, we try to address some of the challenges the industry faces, some of the hot issues, hot topics. Obviously, the code cycle is always very, very important. You made a reference to NFPA 10 and the classification or reclassification of L and where it fits. So now NFPA 800. But we know, you and I've talked about it. We walked the show floor here at NFPA. There are fire extinguisher manufacturers that claim that they got a unit that meets the ability to extinguish a lithium-ion fire. Can you help set some context what that is?
Yeah, basically for those manufacturers that have a listed extinguisher, you need to look closely at the listings certification, whether it's Underwriters Laboratory or other. What you will find is they are nothing more than a 1A rated fire extinguisher, meaning that they successfully passed the wood crib series of test fires and other Class A related test protocols as part of the UL 711 and 299 protocol. So despite perhaps some additional labels that may make the reference or inference that they're acceptable for use on lithium-ion batteries, these extinguishers do not have any sort of classification or meet any sort of classification for LRT because no test protocol exists. No classification of fire exists. So buyer needs to be aware. Us as fire safety professionals need to understand properly the hazards associated with lithium-ion batteries. In fact, there is no lithium in a lithium-ion battery. Which may seem counterintuitive here, but you're typically dealing with a Class B fire is what you're dealing with. And of course, being a thermal explosive event, temperatures in excess of 2,000 degrees. So water is very necessary for cooling.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, I think most municipalities have shaken out and just, hit it with water.
Exactly.
And completely dousing it, in some cases submerging it. In sand when it's all said and done, and like city of Scottsdale or actually the Valley of Phoenix. We don't need to go into details there.
Or specialized fire blankets that will contain, basically you're looking to contain, control, and cool. Not looking for extinguishment. Ultimate extinguishment will typically occur as a result of the fire burning itself out. In fact, I don't know if you heard, I did not personally hear it. I wasn't on the show floor because only exhibitors are allowed in the exhibit hall pre-exhibit hours, but just at basic show opening.
As the door opened.
As the door was open, one of the exhibitors on display here apparently was charging some lithium-ion batteries, and one went into a thermal runaway, and we had a small percussion, maybe, let's say, on the show floor.
If I was on the floor when that happened, it was, I wouldn't say alarming, but it got everyone's attention. And as about 1,000 people are walking on the floor, it was the sound of depending on how close you were, it sounded like an M80.
Yeah,
going off.
Piece of pyrotechnics. So
interesting. The battery pack was basically lithium-ion rechargeable AA's, and overheated, exploded, and the battery, one of the components, actually flew 100 feet
Directionally in a different
an
direction.
arch away from the space. So very interesting. We didn't necessarily know if it was staged or if it was an accident. It was an accident.
Really an accident.
Unfortunately, no one got hurt. So
Yeah,
but yeah,
very fortunate.
from a fight, as we all know, from a fire safety perspective, lithium-ion and battery storage, so batteries themselves are creating significant challenge.
Yeah.
We've got to solve for.
So we're very hopeful that that the future NFPA 800 will address these topics on a broader basis. It's a battery safety code. The structure will be similar to NFPA 72, the National Fire Alarm and Signaling Code and format. And obviously, being a new standard, it will take some time for that standard to be written, developed, and then ultimately released.
Yeah.
Regarding NAFED, NFPA 17, 17A, and 96 are also in cycle this 2025 year.
Yeah.
So in regard to 17A, wet chemical suppression extinguishing systems, and 96, commercial cooking and ventilation systems. A couple of things to look out for when it comes to solid fuel cooking. New topic to be introduced, flavorings, and not just wood types, but physical flavorings, whether those flavorings again of a solid nature, or perhaps some sort of like a sauce or a paste or
a rub of
of some type. So that language has been submitted, proposed, and it looks like flavorings will be coming in because apparently some of these have the ability to affect the fire characteristics within commercial cooking equipment.
That's
yeah. Well, not sure we would have thought of that, but and they're actually being proposed by those individuals that are in that market sector and the manufacturers that produce solid fuel cooking equipment. So the other one deals with the fire alarm connection. Right now, there's a number of different, and this is more of a word edit, but right now you see fire alarm term, you see signaling system term, you see fire signaling system, basically to harmonize and standardize within not only 17A, 96, but within the proper definition of 72. This language will now be known as a fire alarm system. So no longer will we have to guess, are we talking a security or intrusion system or what type of alarm system? It'll be clear that we're talking about the fire alarm system. So
it reflects the evolution of the industry, right?
Exactly.
As technology.
Yeah, exactly.
Much more cleaner and consistent.
Exactly.
So, Dave, one of the things that facilitated the reason for you and I to do this podcast, at this last board meeting back in May, I happened to be sitting next to you and got to hear firsthand your overview at the board about all things technical, and specifically the codes and standards. And the board, we all felt it was great information. We're trying to figure out a vehicle to share this with membership first.
Right.
Secondly, with the industry as a whole, because I mean, the things that you have visibility to, the things that you're able to be a part of, add significant value to the industry as a whole, wearing the NAFED hat. There's got to be a way for us, I mean, this is part of it, but
Sure.
there's got to be a way for us to continue to get that information out to the general public. In that context, we've talked about 17A, we've talked about 10, and that overview that you gave us, other, let's say 2 or 3 other codes that really resonate with you to say, hey, this is changing significantly, or we need to get people involved.
More involved, exactly. Well, and that's the thing at the conference, my talk is that at the 50,000 foot level, right? At a board meeting, we're down at the 10,000 foot
That's right.
level,
Yeah.
much more detail. So it's our hope starting through this first foray of a podcast. I guess it would be my hope, and I know it's been that of the board or expressed by the board, and certainly hopefully welcomed by you, our members, that we would take a more in-depth dive into some of these topics at future dates.
Yeah.
So certainly welcome your comments, feedback, and we're excited to, as I said, do this more or less inaugural launch, for lack of maybe a better term.
Exactly. Yeah. What I envision for this, Dave, obviously, this is the jumping off point. But what I'd like to create is an opportunity through a webinar but hopefully in the fall, where it's long form. And when I say long form, you determine how long you want. Let's say
Sure.
it's 60 to 90 minutes, but it's a live webinar that's then broadcast to the industry. Open it up, members obviously in part of that process, but then open it up to across the industry because there's some great information that needs to get.
There is, and rightly so. The knowledge of our members varies extensively as well. I mean, whether it's NAFED's, maybe call it more traditional member profile, or that of, say, a larger regional or national player. Your knowledge, competency, experience is critical, and the only way we're going to, continue to strengthen that is through communications on what's going on, not only at the national level, but certainly at your local level, local and state level. And conversely, if you're seeing some activity at your level that you believe is beneficial back to the broader NAFED members, by all means, get a hold of me, get a hold of your regional directors, get that information cycled back into the association that we can, do it, due diligence and perhaps address it or respond to it.
That's great. Yeah, I think that anyone looking for Dave's contact information, it's all going to be in the notes for the podcast. Dave made a reference to your regional board of director members. You can find their contact information on the NAFED website. You can reach out to me, whatever it might be, or call NAFED's headquarters in Chicago directly. But at the end of the day, there are resources and there's avenues for you to get in touch with people. So, obviously you said half the codes were in cycle last year, the other half's in this year. We hit it on 10, we hit it on 17. Talk about this new code with regard to NFPA 800. Two other things that kind of resonate with you to say.
I think another important one is NFPA 30A. 30A is service and repair stations or garages. 30A is back in cycle again. And what I mean by that is in calendar year 2023, the standard was in its normal NFPA cycle of every 3 years. There was a new chapter proposed, chapter 15, that dealt with the broader topic of electric vehicles. But it went beyond just what we would consider the charging station itself. It actually looked at the surrounding elements or components that support the charging station all the way to the energy storage container itself. Which, if you think about an existing convenience store that you pull up to today to pump your gas, think of that limited real estate having to be modified to accommodate charging stations and the accessory equipment that goes with it.
Right.
All the way to, in essence, that 20-foot energy storage container that contains the equipment to capture, that has the batteries in it.
That's right.
So anyway, long story short, at the 2023 annual technical meeting at the NFPA Expo and Conference, that chapter 15 was defeated, meaning that the proposed language that would have gone in providing fire protection requirements, hand portable extinguishers, wheeled units, alarm systems, detection systems, other things. That physical chapter 15 did not make it into the final edition of the standard. It was removed. Based on that, the NFPA Standards Council put the standard right back into immediate cycle. So there is no 3-year waiting period here. It immediately went back into cycle. And the committee is adamant about having some guidance in 30A pertaining to EV charging.
Yeah.
So they've narrowed that scope a bit. This will not be finalized. They've had a first draft meeting. So in essence, we have 2 more years to kind of work through this situation. But our hope is that there will be some language that addresses an EV charging station.
Okay.
The physical station. So that's an important one. Basically the new additions or new NFPA standards that were released, say in late 24, 25 included 12A. So we're talking halon and high pressure, low pressure carbon dioxide systems. 13 sprinkler, 72 fire alarms, 600, 601, 1930 dealing with fire hose, 2001 the gaseous clean agents, both chemical based and gas based, and 2010 the aerosols. in the 2025 cycle, aside from, as we've talked here, kind of 10, 17A, 96, NFPA 3.4 are in cycle, 30A, as I mentioned, 33 and 34, flammable and combustible liquids, 96, 101, the life safety code, 855, again, has been brought up and it's being rolled into 800, morphed into 800 and ultimately 915. If you're not familiar with 915 remote inspections, members, get yourself a copy, get familiar with it. It's gaining traction. And what I would say is education is the key.
Absolutely.
To understanding 915. So
anyone that's been a part of this podcast, and then we're 20 episodes in, we've been doing this now for, I think, 3 years. One of the first podcasts we did, I think Drew Slocum and I talked about NFPA 915 and the opportunity to really influence how testing is done, testing and inspect is done in the context of remote. It launched in 2021, I think, if I get my dates right. And all the fanfare associated with launching a new code really got really quiet really fast. And like Dave was alluding to, it's around adoption and, not reading line and verse of the code itself, but it allows a couple of things. One, local AHJ has discretion as to what first meets the definition of remote, and then secondly, how the inspection itself is done. And it creates too much ambiguity for the local AHJs to say what's really the right solution. So that's one. And then two, as you scale with regard to type of devices that we put on to equipment, UL listed, not UL listed, or approved. Again, too much ambiguity. So it's a great concept. But like you said, Dave, I think it's very important that the members and or the industry itself get involved. If I remember right, 915 was very, very heavy AHJ fire.
Yes, very heavy AHJ.
And not a lot of local.
Not a lot of
contract.
Exactly. Installer maintainers are probably in the minority. Insurance individuals are in the minority. It is very much certainly enforcement authority, code heavy driven.
Yep.
And back to that point, John, that you made earlier, what is that definition of remote inspection? And so we are in our first draft. We had a first draft meeting for 915, and to let you know, this isn't AI stuff. This isn't necessarily drones. This is not, I think the initial perception when you say remote inspection is people are thinking, well, you got to have a suppression system that has smarts and parts, right? That has some connectivity, network connectivity to it. So if you think of our traditional pre-engineered systems, no, they're electromechanical based systems. But a good example was brought up. One of the presentations we had in our first draft meeting came from the state of Washington. Their code, basically their building code committee group, and there is an individual that does now via remote final commissioning and certificate of occupancy issuance in, I guess I would call it final inspections.
Sure.
On those suppression systems. So in the past, maybe where they were standing next to you or 5 feet away from you, they may be on a camera like we are on here today. But again, education is that key. It's just not an intuitively understood standard.
Right. I think, again, there you made a really clear point that, again, this is not getting rid of the technician.
No. Definitely not getting
the code still says you have to have the technician on site. That technician might be wearing a pair of cool glasses to record. There might be a drone to go up 40 feet to take a picture of a sprinkler head
versus getting in a scissor lift or a man lift.
Exactly. Or putting a device on a fire pump and recording the pump cycles, or maybe it's a pressure switch on a riser, to catch your flow.
Exactly.
And off hours. At the end of the day, technician still has to be deployed to go monitor and confirm the status of the equipment, but it's making the ability to capture data and the status of the systems at outside of normal business cycles to make sure we're compliant, right?
Exactly.
So that's great. All right, what else to add on with regard to codes?
Maybe from a broader ICC perspective, International Code Council, there had been a formal interpretation request made on behalf of FEMA Fire Equipment Manufacturers Association. I think our members know that both FEMA and NAFED have a close partnership agreement. But basically, in the 2018 edition of the IFC, International Fire Code, Section 9064, the question was raised. Apparently, there were some AHJs that were stating that the brand of the Class K unit, extinguisher unit that's in the kitchen for cooking media protection, had to match that of the kitchen suppression system. And that is not the case. So a formal interpretation request was made to ICC. ICC's chief fire protection engineer addressed that back in writing to FEMA. FEMA has been kind enough to share that, and we will be getting that out in a technical notice to yourselves. But basically, the Class K is there. It is to be there in those areas where immediate cooking media is being used. But I think, as you all know, the commercial kitchen is perhaps larger than what you normally would envision. There's that area that you cook in, and then there's that area that you store, prepare, organize, whatever. And you will find other classifications of fire risks back there. Won't be a Class K, most likely it'll be, Class A, Class B hazard. You may find dry chemical extinguishers back there, carbon dioxide if you have electrical control panels, and other things. So be aware of what is being defined as that kitchen environment. But the important thing is, know when it comes to the Class K unit, you can have brand A for the suppression system and brand B or C for the hand portables, or vice versa.
Yep.
So
great point. Especially given the evolution of, who installed that kitchen system.
Exactly.
Isn't necessarily the servicing contractor, right? And then the servicing contractor over time changes.
Yeah,
right?
and the kitchen could have gone through a remodel as well.
Exactly.
An expansion, contraction, whatever. So
that's great.
But so be aware of the ICC one. So other than that, training programs, probably one of the last items, at least, with this session, to try to get your engagement, is be aware that we continue to work on and update those training programs that add value for you and your membership connectivity with NAFED. So we updated the general safety awareness program, which is now online, available to NAFED members. We just recently updated the engineered systems certification technician exam, physical exam questions for that certification to correlate to the most current editions of the standards. So as an example, previous editions referenced anywhere from 2015 to 2018 editions. The current list, depending upon whether you're talking about NFPA 11, maybe 12, 12A, 17, 72, 750, they are all now the current 23 through 2025 editions. So be aware of that. And then we are looking at updating what I call education and preparatory programs for portable extinguishers, pre-engineered kitchen, pre-engineered industrial. And it's our hope that by end of summer, early fall at the latest, if not sooner, we will have those programs updated and available for our members as well.
That's great. First and foremost, if you thought Dave knew all those numbers off the top of his head, he probably like 90% close, but he does have a cheat sheet on his head.
Got a little list of guys. Got my notes.
But obviously, wealth, deep well of knowledge that Dave has, especially after 40 years.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think there's times that you and I both forgot more things than we remember.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
But as you said, it's been a wonderful ride. I've enjoyed our friendship and our industry collaboration, and a former colleague. And I'm amazed at just where the time flies. So
we're lying.
Dave,
we're still 38.
I know. Again, by the way.
Again. All right. One of the things that we do to wrap every podcast, we refer to it as the rapid fire round. All right. Or Drew Slocum would call it the quick response round for his fire sprinkler podcast, or the fire protection podcast on his side. But it just gives an opportunity for the listeners to get to know you a little bit. right? Obviously,
Sure.
I know you very well. We've done a lot of different things together over time, but all right. So I know born and raised in Wisconsin.
Yep.
All right. Let's see. I won't ask a leading question. So football team fan, all right?
Very much bleed green and gold.
Right, green and gold. Actually, my first Packer game that I went to was with this guy. You, me, John Papuga, and Ann Papuga.
From the former American Fire.
American Fire. And
out of Arizona.
We went to a Packer playoff game against Seattle.
Yes.
And it got like 7 inches of snow. Couldn't see the white jerseys other than the green neon for the Seahawks. But and I'm a Chicago Bears fan, so it was a very interesting environment.
We every once in a while, Lambeau Field obviously is a very unique experience at Hallowed Hall.
On so many levels.
Just as the old Soldier Field was. I mean, seriously, I think for all of you that follow sports, and obviously that's a significant number of you, to me, Lambeau Field is kind of like, Wrigley Field or
Fenway Park,
Fenway Park or the Tigers Park, the old United Center.
Yes.
It has that history, that culture. If you ever get in the Great White North, you wouldn't be disappointed visiting Lambeau Field. I could just say that.
I would say, again, growing up as a Bears fan and going to the first Lambeau game and living in the Green Bay area for a number of years, personally, I'm not going to speak for everyone, but personally, I learned not to hate the Green Bay Packers. Well, just given the culture, the community, and what it means to the city and everything else. And I remember going to a game, not with you, but we went to a game against the Saints as a kickoff classic and meeting New Orleans Saints fans in line for beer. And the Saints fans first said, "Wow, you're the nicest people in the world."
Yes.
Didn't think you'd be buying my beer. And truly enjoyed the experience. So that was one. Two, all right. So one of the other things that we always talk about is the importance of leadership, mentorship.
Sure.
And those that were truly influential in our careers.
Sure.
And you and I were very fortunate to be able to work with some really.
Yeah.
So here's the question. You can go back in time or even today.
Okay.
Go back and work with that one person that was really most impactful, influential, and directly or indirectly helped to prepare you for where you're at today in your career. All the things that you've done, you had some great opportunities and some great roles. Who would that one person be?
I hate to say, John, there isn't one, as much as I would like to really say. I think there are in my mind, there are really a minimum of 3 and probably a maximum of 6. The reason I say that is when I entered the industry, I was fortunate enough that the connectivity was not only with the manufacturer's authorized channel partners, but in the case of Ansel, it was with the end user customer. And we don't see as much of that today. And so if I were to step back, and I'll take each separately quickly, Ed Zaratsky, Mike Kraus, Rolly Larsch, some of these names for those that have been in the industry, probably at least 3 decades minimum or greater, will recognize those names, but they are basically individuals that helped, along with other well-recognized individuals across our entire industry sector, kind of set the tone and temperament for what is the fire protection industry today, particularly with codes and standards and product and compliance with products. The other, so that would be, and I guess internally back in my old Ansel days, we would joke, kind of get cheek, refer to them as the 3 Musketeers. The other would be on externally, and these are individuals that worked at major corporations in the chemical industry, in the automotive industry, in the utility industry, and we'll just leave it there. Relative not to their business names, but Dorbeck, Shepard, and Rozicki, and then Schrader, Murphy, and Lawson. Which are all in the state of Michigan, and these individuals were the corporate fire protection engineers for some of the largest automotive, utility, and chemical companies. And because of that relationship that the factory had with the end user, to some extent, we were almost embedded in their business. I more or less was said, you go see these people and they will teach you fire protection. And I felt very fortunate for that. I'm very honored by it. I've had the pleasure of working for 3 different manufacturers in my over four decade career in the industry. And what I do today for NAFED, I kind of look at as giving back, right? Yes, I serve as your technical head. I lead those industry advocacy efforts for the association and certifications and so on and so forth. But I look at, I am here to serve you, and hopefully you can do that, whether it's directing you back to certain citations or references and standards, or back to the bright manufacturers and their people who can answer those other technical, product-specific technical questions. So thoroughly enjoy the role I have today.
Well, that's great. Thanks for recognizing those people that, really influenced you. Of all the names you threw out, the one person I was fortunate enough to meet was Mike.
Mike Krause.
Mike Krause, and he was getting ready to retire when I started. And again, just the big personality, big man, soft heart, soft hands, and he just wanted to educate and advocate. And still remember my experiences with him on my first week on the job. It's really memorable.
And I think, as you know, that didn't happen with everyone either. I mean, not to say that any of us were unique or special in some respect, but we must have touched something in them that they then saw in us.
Absolutely.
And that's still near and dear to the heart.
Yeah.
So,
well, Dave, we're going to wrap there. It's been, great conversation.
It's been a lot of fun.
Your first podcast. We're going to do this more often, man. For those of you that, need to get a hold of Dave, want more information about NAFED, we're going to put all the contact information in the notes from both Dave directly, the NAFED website, and then, of course, my information, and do what we can to answer questions, number one. Number two, as Dave referred to, we're going to be working towards a webinar in the fall, a long-form webinar, to allow for the true deep dive into these codes.
Yes.
So if you want to get all geeked out on line and verse and chapter 15 and whatever's coming in or coming out, we'll get that in the fall. And so along those lines, if there's a question you have, if there's a code you want to make sure is on that list, please submit it in the notes. Reach out to me. Reach out to Dave as we prepare for that, and we'll start to prepare for that probably here at the end of the summer. And with that, Dave.
Hey.
Thanks,
John,
man.
it has been an absolute
That was
pleasure.
awesome. I truly appreciate
Absolute
our
honor and pleasure. Likewise.
And I really thank you for taking the time to do this.
Well, thank you, and thank to the TMG Fireside Chat for this opportunity for NAFED. So
awesome.
It's
Great.
been a scream, and it'll continue to be one.
Yes. So now we got to get to the next session.
Yeah, we actually have to get back to work now, guys. Sorry about that.
So thank you, everyone. Really appreciate you taking the time to listen, and always really apprate your engagement around the TMG Fireside Chat.
Thank you for your partnership and support of the association.
Yeah. Thank you all. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the TMG Fireside Chat. Huge thanks to Dave Pelton for lending his time and technical expertise. As always, Dave brings a wealth of insight that helps move the fire protection industry forward. If you want to dive deeper into NFPA updates, training resources, or how to get involved with NAFED committees, check out the show notes for Dave's contact info or visit www.nafed.org. And stay tuned. We'll be planning a fall 2025 webinar where Dave will do a long-form breakdown of what's changing across codes and standards and what it means for contractors, AHJs, and manufacturers alike. Until next time, stay safe, stay informed, and keep building the future of fire and life safety.